So Pokemon introduces that line-based drawing. You can also see it in ukiyo-e woodblock prints from Japan. It also introduced this style of storytelling, which you can find in a lot of anime and manga, which is, has a couple of crucial components. One is that the characters and the environment does not have to be rooted in a biological reality. And one quick way to explain that, in American cartoons, Bugs is a bunny, right? That's Silly Rabbit. Mickey is a mouse, Donald's a duck, go on, right? Wile E. Coyote, etc. And then you have your Superman and your Spider-Man and so on. But in a lot of Japanese stories in anime and manga, the characters can be divorced from biological reality entirely. So Pokemon are pocket monsters, right? If you think of the Tamagotchi pets that were popular years ago, 10 years ago, I guess, they're these virtual pets that you have to feed and you have to clean them. They're just digital pets, basically. But they're not necessarily based upon a biological reality. So consequently, in the Pokemon universe, as some of you will know, the number of characters keeps growing and growing and growing, right? And there's no explanation for it, there's no procreation, of course, there's no actual biological basis for their flowering, except that they're pocket monsters in this fantasy landscape. And that enables what we call it in Japanese storytelling, the serialized, or as I describe in the book, rough translation, the never-ending saga. The story just goes on and on and on. So, and this is one way of distinguishing manga from graphic novels, so-called graphic novels in the West. If you find a graphic novel, and some of them are extraordinary, Art Spiegelman's work, for example, Art Spiegelman is an American artist, he did Mouse, this phenomenal classic now story about the Holocaust, as a graphic novel. But there's usually only one or possibly two editions of a graphic novel. But if you go into Borders or Barnes & Noble to the manga section, as many of you know, the volumes run from 1 through 25 or 35 or 38. They keep going. The stories are built upon cliffhangers that keep you coming back. You reach the end of one and you've got to have the next one. In fact, this is a part of why the anime industry is struggling right now, because young people who get their anime fix on the internet have to have the next episode right away. They're not going to wait for a DVD to come out. They're not going to wait for the official version. They got to see the next part of the story, right? So it's a serialized style of storytelling. And incidentally, I was talking with folks out in Hollywood about American television series, and a couple of folks mentioned that Lost and 24, the creators of those programs were both heavily influenced by manga. Yep. And they really loved that style of storytelling. They thought this can work on US TV, and look what happened. Yeah. They're huge, right, those series. So that is a style of storytelling. Again, you can go all the way back to what's considered the very first novel ever written in the 11th century. It's called The Tale of Genji. And if any of you pick that, it's a huge tome. I mean, if you grab the whole thing. But when you start reading it, there are these episodic storylines. It's a serialized method of storytelling. Now, I don't mean to suggest that the Japanese are the only people who tell stories this way. In fact, the 19th century novel, particularly Charles Dickens, who we all know, was one of the geniuses of serialized storytelling. And his stories would appear in these journals or magazines and then build up into an entire novel. And readers would want to keep coming back and keep coming back. But that's a crucial element of manga and anime, that serialized method of storytelling that builds up into an entire series. So there are some other elements as well, but Pokemon introduced some of those fundamental elements of Japanese-style storytelling and visual representation, and it hooked or addicted generations of American kids who wanted more, even if they moved on from Pokemon. So now you have some young people who, in fact, I lecture at the University of Tokyo in Japan, and I had an American student a couple of semesters ago, and she was studying the Japanese